Well, hello everybody, and it's been great to see so many of you on the live sessions, and I have another one of my Savvy Shay Business Club members with me today just to talk about how to make the most, yeah, showing the book there, how to make the most of implementation sprints, and indeed to talk about the benefits of the Savvy Shay Business Club. But I'm delighted that Susan Weeks is with me today. Susan we've just been having a little chat and we just decided that a good word for her is a legal activist. Susan has been brilliant at implementing what she has learned as part of other sprints and as part of what she's learned as part of the membership, and has taken on some pretty big names and not been afraid to continue persisting in order to get them to change their terms and GDPR practices and things like that. So thank you, Susan, for coming on. So Susan helps creatives with course creation and digital products, and also has a leading podcast. What's the name of the podcast again, Susan?
It's called Stitchery Stories. It's textile art. It is literally globally popular. I have listeners all over the world where I sit and chat on with textile artists and embroidery artists about lovely embroidery.
Fantastic, excellent. So helping creatives with course creation and digital products. I know obviously we've got a lot of people in our community who do that. So if you're struggling, it might be worth going to have a chat with Susan. But anyway, more on that. So firstly, in terms of how to make the most of the sprints, I mean, I know you very well now, Susan, and that's because you have really gone all in when I've been doing the sprints, and you've been a very enthusiastic learner, and more importantly, you have actually implemented and not been afraid to take your newfound knowledge or your, I'm not sure, I'm saying it was newfound, maybe it was new, but the sprints gave you the confidence to actually go and have discussions with big players to get what you want, and in order to protect your business in the best way.
Yes.
So there's a couple of examples that we're going to talk about. Let's start with the data protection one first, as we are doing a GDPR sprint. So I understand that, so obviously you use a lot of third-party platforms with what you do.
Yes.
And a lot of them are based in the States.
Yes.
Now, I remember back to when GDPR was coming into force, and a lot of the smaller players' point of view was, what has this got to do with me? This is a UK law. I don't need to comply with this. You know, and when you told them that they were a data processor and that they needed to care about things like security and have a data processor agreement in place and things like that, they just wanted to wash their hands of it. But then I think gradually over time, and people like you, and we'll talk about your role in this, you know, they've seen that that's not a great business idea, because consumers are rightly worried about their, like you said, one of them was just trying to wash their hands of security and say, you know, there's so much that can go wrong with security. It's nothing to do with us, Gov, which astonishes me that that's the approach that they took. But I think they are, yeah, you know, sort of waking up to it, but it has been an educating journey for those businesses as well. So talk us through your role in helping some of those platforms to actually sit up and take notice of their UK customer base and the, you know, the legislation that they're now subject to.
Yeah, so obviously back in, you know, early 2018, it was a shambles. You were there desperately trying to get people to listen, and nobody, you know, say those big companies really weren't playing ball, were they? Anyway, times moved on, as you say. So a couple of your sprints have kicked this off for me, but an early session with in the Savvy Shay Club, where we was talking about digging into this role about data processor and at that point I really hadn't really understood the seriousness of, we are a data controller, they're the processor. So when I was doing my data inventory like a year and a half or so ago, properly this time, because I had some guidance from you. I'm a bit of an all-in person. I like the detail. I used to be a mainframe computer programmer. So I was there thinking, right, go and look at the privacy policies, start reading through all of the words. And I was then starting to get slowly horrified. So a couple of the platforms that I used, I don't know, I maybe won't say them, but one of them was a really nice appointment scheduling booking system, which I really liked, and I'd got on a deal from AppSumo a couple of years before that. So I really liked this thing. And when I was looking at the information about the international transfer, that's been a shambles for a long time, hasn't it? And I think tonight we're going to be looking at that.
Yes, we are.
So that was like, oh, well, really, there's not much we can do other than kind of go with the flow. But secondly, you know, what's your processing and your data security and stuff. And one of them, I was horrified when I looked. It just basically was a paragraph saying, well, you know, these things can happen. Really, there's a lot of things outside of our control. It's not really much to do with us. And now, well, hang on, that's wrong, because not only are we taking bookings from people, but you could also pay. You know, that was one of the reasons why I liked it. Somebody could pop into your schedule, pay, and then you could, you know, book for your hours brain picking session or whatever. So I liked this. But that's no good. You can't be taking payment and just have this pathetic attitude. So I started to escalate that, and I did actually finish up with the I got to the founder eventually, because it was one of these wanting to get bigger companies. So you could still get to that person. And I was trying to explain it from, I don't think they'd understood from our point of view that we're actually responsible for what they're doing because we picked that platform. I don't think they'd twigged that. You know, and I said, and you are part of this because you've got customers like me in Europe and the UK. And so gradually, you know, and also you kind of clicked on your privacy policy, which went to another link, which sent you back. And you never actually got to the damn document either. It was really hard to find. So I did finally, you know, express that they could also use the compliance as a like a marketing point of view as well, because all of these platforms are all compete against each other. So slowly things have changed there. And another company I was doing the same with, and I saw recently that they have actually publicly said they've appointed a representative in Europe. So at least that shows they're taking it more seriously now. And you know, I was able to, because the help desk, of course, go, oh, there's nothing we can do about this. You know, I'm going to close the ticket, so you have to keep opening tickets. So you know, that was I had the confidence that what you'd been giving us the guidance for and teaching us, that I was actually speaking from a correct point of view and was able to express it from a small business, you know, perspective, from our perspective, that we're responsible as the processor, as the controller, for them as the processor. And I just don't think that they twigged.
Because you know, let's think about the consequences if you hadn't have done that. You know, what you would have done sensibly is move away from that platform, which is a big disruption to your business. Or you might have rather less sensibly thought, oh, well, the risk of any kind of security incident is really low, so I'll just chance it anyway. But then, of course, it might be a reduced risk, as in it's not going to happen every day, but the consequences are significant. So, you know, if there is a data breach because they haven't got the right security in place, or you know, in some other way haven't been compliant with the GDPR, and then there is an investigation, and then, you know, the ICO say, what due diligence did you do on your data processor? And you say, well, you know, I contacted the help desk and they told me there was nothing they could do about it. They're not going to be that happy with that answer, you know. So they said they would say, well, you know, you shouldn't have been, if you knew that processor was not compliant, as it says in the GDPR, you should not be, you know, you are breaching the GDPR by not using a compliant processor. And then, you know, who knows what their response might be, as in the ICO, you know, obviously they've got the power to fine, they've got the power, in the best case scenario, they would give you a period of time to move away from that processor. And in the worst case scenario, there would be, you know, some kind of fine for not having, well, for having known there was an issue and then not having done anything about it, and of course potential fine for the data breach. So I think you're very wise. Most people, I don't think, would have persisted. So well done. And I just
took it at the point, like you've just said there, of I didn't want to move away from the platform. I did stop kind of using it for a while to see what would happen. But then when I saw they were starting to make changes, and I thought, I felt as if I was kind of, at least I'd covered myself by, look, I've made an effort here, which, you know, you've always kind of said as well, show that you're making an effort, show that you're trying. And I'm a little one-man band and these are big companies. So,
yes, yeah,
you know, so I kind of thought, well, as you say there, I know I've done the best I could to at least try and do something about it rather than either give up or walk away. You know, I didn't want to do either of those things. So
No,
that was useful.
So we're going to be talking on tonight's session about data processors and transfers to processors and international transfers and the recent changes that have taken place there. So if what we've just been talking about is gobbledygook, and you need to make sure that you are on tonight's session where we will be talking about all of that, and it will make much more sense. So I know, Susan, that another sprint that you did, and just for those of you that don't know, we do the sprints every quarter as part of my Savvy Shay Business Club, and they're included in the membership, but you'll also get all of the the recordings and materials that went with previous sprints. So we've done one on, there's been a coaching and consultancy sprint, there's been a selling one-to-many sprint, there has been a copyright and content protection sprint, there's been a trademark sprint, there has been a negotiation with suppliers and client sprint, and now we've got this one. So I think that's
about it, isn't it? Yeah, there's
yeah, but there's a lot of materials that, you know, and you can go and watch the trainings, and then because we're not doing it, the recordings are not live, obviously, but then you would go into the membership and ask your questions as you implement, into the, you know, the surgery and the Facebook group and things like that, and ask your questions. So another one that Susan did, and again was you know, persisted in making changes that she wanted to see in order to better protect her business, was, I think, the selling one-to-many sprint.
Yes, that was the first one. I think that was the first one you did, actually. That was perfect for me, because I knew I was feeling exposed as I wanted to start selling my own courses, and I didn't have any terms and conditions in place. That came along at the perfect time.
Good, I'm very glad to hear that. So we really walked through you know, terms of business and the sort of increased risk of selling to lots more people. You know, if you've previously been selling one-to-one, and then suddenly you're going to be selling potentially globally, you know, potentially to lots of people, it's ever more important to think about risk and liability and get the right terms of business in place. So after having done that, and again, you went all in, Susan, you're not one to do things by halves and just watch half a session here or there. You decided that you were going to take on one of the giants of the third-party platforms. So talk us through that.
Right. So again, I won't mention the platform, but it's one of the leading online course hosting platforms. And yes, of course, it's from the United States. And when we were going through the wording of the terms and conditions, you know, there's that whole issue there about refunds for things that are sold and delivered digitally. And, you know, you've provided some really great guidance in there, and the wording of how you can do that, because you don't want somebody to come along, download everything, and then say, oh, can I have a refund? When you know they're just basically stealing your content. Fine. However, these big platforms obviously are operating globally, and there's all sorts of people from all over the world going onto those platforms and doing exactly that. But they like to offer the safeguard from the consumer's point of view of, oh, you can have a 30-day refund because this course might be rubbish. And I'm sure there are lots of rubbish courses out there. You know, there's bound to be. But from a little one-man band, that didn't sit well. So I can understand why they want to do that. I had your, you know, knowledge of how we can protect ourselves to stop that. And for me, it was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. And of course, I'd signed up to their terms and conditions that you have to accept this. You have to provide it. So I thought, So I started digging about to find out about this. And I again, started with the help desk. And a few gave me a run around, and then somebody finally stuck their head over the parapet and said, actually, you can create some custom terms They have to be approved by us, our discretion. We're not saying you can have it, blah, blah, you know, do these things. And it will send you off to the finance department. So, because again, these large platforms, there's lots of small players, but there are some big operations using them as well on a, you know, much more commercial basis, kind of white labeled. So that's what I did. So I took your the wording and how I thought it would be fair to manage, put that together, sent it off, and about 2 weeks later came back, yes, you were approved. Woohoo! So I was just like, yay! And I think I came into the Savvy thing, didn't I? I think we might have been a social. What's your win?
Yes, yeah.
Win. You remember that?
I do remember that. Yes, we were all applauding you.
So yeah, and again, it's still just a bunch of people that you're dealing with. It start with the help desk, and if they realise that you are genuine and that you're talking from a point of knowledge and confidence, you're far more likely to start to be able to, you know, get to the decision makers at that point, you know, at that point in time. So again, it's worth trying. Definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the point there being that if you're selling, you know, for example, digital products to consumers, then there is a form of wording that you need to have that says that they can't get it. Because normally, if you're selling to consumers at a distance, there is in the UK law that says that you have to give them the 14-day cooling off period. If you have the right form of wording in your terms that says that it's a digital product, and because it's capable of being downloaded immediately, you lose that right to cancel, then you don't have to give them a refund. So Susan had that right form of wording that you know, can prevent people doing what she said, which is, you know, going in, downloading your digital content, and then asking for a refund, and effectively, as Susan said, stealing your valuable you know, IP and content and courses and digital products, etc. And so well done, Susan, because I know, again, that probably took a fair amount of time and effort. But now you've got, you know, your business is in so much better position. I
feel better, you know, and again, it's not a lack mentality. It's just been practical in that when you're just on these larger platforms, yes, obviously it's not a marketplace, so I still control who's coming in there. So the risk to me is very, very small. A lot of people who come and buy my courses, they know me already, you know, but still, I just thought, no, I can't rest. Once I know, I'm just like this. Once I know there's a problem, I can't sweep under the carpet. I'm not a sweeping under the carpet person. So, but the confidence from doing those sprints and literally sitting, you know, I mean, this is my one from yesterday. I've already, you know, this is the second time through now with cookies and GDPR and stuff, and there's still things I think, actually I can tighten that up, I can change that, I've missed that. Oh, you know, so I've got these 2 websites on the go. So just sitting there and doing it at that point in time just makes so much. Or even if I do recordings, just put some time in your diary, because otherwise it'll never happen, and you know, you're not getting the most out of it. I think the Savvy Shay Club for me it's like anything, you get out of it what you put in, but it's so worth it, you know, Suzanne. And I've been able to guide, you know, my course participants from the kind of arty crafty world to say, I'm not playing at a lawyer, but at least I can say to them, look, there are rules around selling to consumers online. Oh, I didn't know that. I said, you can't just say what you want. Go and find out, go and follow Suzanne, you know, or you have to have this thing, or you're a pro, you are, you know, the controller here. Oh, I didn't know that. So at least I can tell them the high level facts.
Yeah, so you've been able to help your own community because you've had that confidence in your own legal knowledge.
Very much so, and I use that as like a differentiating factor as well, because in some respects I'm again competing with the, you know, the big online gurus who make millions out of this. But I can say, well, look, they will never tell you or guide you that you need these things. This is important. You've got different route for selling to consumers, as most of my audience are. I'm selling to business, but my audience is selling to consumers who are buying their, you know, stitch workshops and stuff. So it helps me from that business perspective as well, Suzanne, to be honest with you.
Yes, and on that point, with the changing your terms to say no refunds, of course, if you are purely dealing with businesses, then you don't have to give them a refund anyway for anything.
Exactly, but
yeah.
but that platform insisted that I did have to, and that was my big problem there, was the fact that I don't have to because it's purely business, but that platform's saying I do. So that was why I went in on that.
I see.
It didn't sit well with me, didn't that? So yeah,
wonderful. So how would you describe the community, Susan? I know you come on a lot of our socials and you've got to know a fair few people through the membership. How would you describe the people that we attract to the membership?
It's a very positive audience. It's very supportive as well. And again, for me, you know, my kind of terminology is I really like to have a proper job. You know, everything I do has got to be a proper job. And you know that the people in your community who've invested in learning more about the legal side and protecting the business are also looking to do a proper job. And so I feel like you're really like-minded souls as well in that point of view. Everyone's trying their best to do that proper job, whereas in other communities it's just like, oh no, we don't need to worry about that. And it's like, you do, it's not right. So you know, it is a very positive community of business owners who are trying to do their best for themselves and their customers and their, you know, whoever's in their world, basically. So that comes across very strongly, and that for me is also very important. So
brilliant. Well, Susan, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us this morning, and carry on with your legal activism. Well, I wonder what you're going to do from this sprint. Is there anything you've identified so far that you're going to take up the cause on?
No, but I do. Well, I might just carry on going on at the compliance of some of these bigger platforms. There's a few others that there's actually one that I've started using that I need to dig a bit more into what they do. But it's certainly, while I was at a sprint yesterday, sent an email. I don't do much in the way of services anymore, but I am helping a client implement. I'm doing the implementation of their courses. It's had a checkered past of all these courses on other things. And I'm going, and where is your privacy notice and your cookie policy whilst I think on? And so I've asked them about 3 times already, and I know there's a problem there. So it's
keep nudging. Yes. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for spending some time with us, and it's always a delight to have you in our community. So and actually, if when we on Friday, we'll be sharing how you can join the membership, and if you look at the registration page, you will see Susan's amazing video that she did for us. Brilliant. Well, I think that is definitely on there.
That's how I got the cup and my prize of a 3 years membership. So that was that's really handy. And I did a little reel yesterday on Instagram, and at the end of it, I put, years ago when you was doing your GDPR book, there was something about, will you send us a photo? So I've got this really silly photo of me going,
oh yes,
holding up the book. So
yes, no, I remember that one too. No, you've been a great supporter, Susan. So thank you so much, and it's great to hear.
And I benefited enormously, Suzanne. So that's great. My point of view.
Great to hear. All right, Susan. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. What's on your schedule today? Have you got a busy day?
Yes, I've got a podcast episodes that I need to edit and get that out, and I've got a few little tweaks from cookies and things to have a twiddle around with as well. So I shall get that hopefully done.
Excellent. Well, enjoy the podcast editing. All right, lovely. I shall see you later. Thanks, Susan.
Pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.